The Oracle of Luna is a podcast with me, Bridget Engels, as your host. Here we have conversations with real live, present-day goddesses who are actively and courageously doing their magical work in the world. Each episode is a bewitching journey with relevant discussions on topics such as Wiccan pagan spirituality, writing, culture, magical practices, art, ritual, and the craft in its many forms. Merry meet! Welcome to another episode of the Oracle of Luna podcast. I'm Bridget Engels, your host, and today I'm very honored to chat with Máire Durkan. Máire is an interfaith hospital chaplain, heathen minister, green witch, and dedicated Friggswoman. She serves as a clergy coordinator for the Troth, one of the oldest heathen organizations. She is the author of Frigg's Twelvefold Flame, Creating Justice and Healing with the Goddess in Her Court by Llewellyn Worldwide, which explores Frigg and our Council of Allied Goddesses for support with justice, healing, and personal growth. Máire specializes in creating and leading inclusive rituals and workshops rooted in intersectional feminist spirituality. Welcome, Máire.
Thank you so much, Bridget. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy you're here today. So how's your day going?
It has been a terrific day. I'm in the afterglow of Beltane, Walpurgis night, Hexenacht. Beautiful day. Got out in nature, hugged a tree, and just looked at the embers of our Beltane fire from last night. And it's just been awesome.
Yay! Yeah, I went out and did ritual out at the Sekhmet Temple out in the desert. So, it was a glorious, magical night. So here we are. Are you ready to jump in? We've got a lot to unpack here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. So, as I usually start with my guests, I want to ask, how did your spiritual journey begin with witchcraft, and what did that look like for you?
That is a really good question. I would have to go back to saying that my path into witchcraft really started and how I grew up. I'm a kid of the 60s and 70s. I had older siblings who were very much part of that Woodstock vibe, Age of Aquarius world. So, meditation and yoga and the idea that magic might be real were just part of sort of my everyday life. It didn't really feel that unusual. And of course, you can't leave out the important books, right? Delaire's mythology, the Greek mythology, Delaire's Norse mythology from the time I was very little. Those plant seeds in a person. And I still read those to my kids and my grandkids. Also, of course, Tolkien. You can't get away from Tolkien, can you? The elves, the wizards, the magic, the Ents, the trees, it's all there. So, yeah.
So reading those books growing up in the 60s and 70s shaped your spiritual worldview, would you say? Or did you have a specific religion that you grew up with, or?
We were sort of pretty agnostic. My mom had converted from Judaism to Catholicism. My uncle had, they were Orthodox Jews and they had converted. My uncle had converted, which is really funny because I'll talk about him later because my uncle was extremely psychic. My uncle Stephen was an artist and he did psychometry. So I would say that we were nominally Catholic, but not really because I grew up like meditating to Ravi Shankar and doing all that stuff, and that was very much a part of it. I think meditation was really the foundation because it gave me the first sense of connection to something bigger. And then, of course, when I was a teenager, oh boy, then I got into astronomy and astrology, particularly from astronomy, sort of the scientific side. I segued into astrology, and boy, I was lucky. There was a friend of mine whose mom was very into it and took me under her wing and really started to teach me a little bit. So that was probably the start. I wouldn't say the word witch back then was something that we even used, but it was certainly these were planting seeds. But
Yeah.
I think for me, and probably for most of us who are like in their 60s, certainly, I think what really got me into being a witch later was community.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
much later in life, as a woman, as a mother, Grail of the Birch Moon out of the Assembly of the Sacred Wheel, that was a turning point for me because it's one thing to study, right? And
Yeah.
it's another to actually do the work with
Practice.
people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where did you
And it
grow
was
up, Maura?
I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware. I still live here.
Oh,
It's real close to Philly, real close to Baltimore and DC. We're part of that Boswash, but there's a lot of countryside around where I live. So I'm lucky I can get out in nature very, very
yeah.
easily.
Did you
But
go, were you kind of a nature kid? Did you
I
spend a lot of time in
was.
nature? Yeah.
I had a lot of ticks in my hair growing up, Bridget. I was back in the woods. We were always back there in the woods and running around. And there was luckily a horse farm close to us, so we could get animals. That was back when there were still box turtles walking around, and there was a lot more wildlife.
Yeah.
Happening than there is now, particularly where I lived
Mhm.
as a kid growing up. But
Mhm.
yeah, no, nature was always something I was loved, wanted to be in, to the point of, as I said, ticks in the hair, dirt on the knees, all day. We were
Creating
gone.
potions with mud and
Oh
leaves
yeah,
and
mud
stuff.
potions, you
Yeah.
bet. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, who's influenced you the most, would you say, on your spiritual magical path? You mentioned your Uncle Stephen, I believe.
Yeah. I am going to bring him up. Steve Attinger was an incredible human being. He was an incredible artist, and he's passed now, of course, because he was born in 1911. So he's gone. But he had psychometry, and so he could pick up an object and basically get impressions from it, like images and feelings.
Mm.
And sometimes he said even sounds tied to its past. He could a wallet, even a picture. And as a kid, I accepted it because kids do. We don't question what is part of it, and it didn't feel weird. It just felt like, oh yeah, that's a thing. So I think that
Huh.
really opened me up early to the idea
Yeah.
that things are bigger than people think. And that was a time where, again, the word witch wasn't one I would have ever been hearing in my life. Um, and certainly not magic with a K. We wouldn't have used that, but
Yeah.
it was there. And of course, I don't know for you, Bridget, but I think did Scott Cunningham for you? I think Scott Cunningham was huge for me as I got a little, into my
Yeah.
adult
Started
years.
reading books.
That
Also,
Scott
well,
Cunningham.
you were in Delaware growing up kind of out in nature. And so, what would you describe, or how could you describe the first time you practiced a blot or a heathen
Bloat.
rite?
Bloat
Bloat?
rhymes with
Okay.
coat. Yeah. So I would say that was nearly 20 years ago. So, I was well into my adult time, well, well, well. And I would say it was probably, I think it might have been Free Spirit Gathering, which is Camp Ramblewood in Maryland. Not sure, can't quite remember, but I think that's where it was. But I can tell you this, that everything felt very unfamiliar, but very powerful. It was really different from the way we practice now. Very different. Back then, the horn was filled with mead. That was sort of a given. There was no like apple juice. There was no low octane. Uh, Everyone now it's different. The lots of my rights I don't even have. I wouldn't even consider having mead because if I have someone I know is triggered,
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep it low
So
octane.
it was kind of
But
based in Norse mythology and Norse
mhm,
spiritual practices, right? So can you
yeah,
like describe maybe your first
sure.
heathen rite?
Yeah, I would love to. So I believe it was a bloat to tear, and there was a call for protection, but not the kind of quarter casting I would have been used to from Wicca. And it felt less structured, yet somehow, in some ways, very grounded. Like the
Mm-hmm.
space was being held rather than contained,
Mm-hmm.
the way we would do when we were casting a circle. But what really struck me, Bridget, was the Galder, the chanting that we would call Galder in the heathen tradition. So this was to tear. So what they were Galdering was the Tiwas, the rune Tiwas, which is about victory through sacrifice. And you could feel it resonate, not just hearing it, but almost becoming part of it for me. And then that, and I think being in the community where we were doing 3 rounds, one to the gods, one to the ancestors, and an open round. And by the time that horn was passed through everyone's hands, and back then this was pre-COVID, pre-everything.
Yeah.
That horn was, we wiped it, but it was going around. That really, I remember walking away from that rite feeling change, not in a dramatic way, Bridget, but in a quiet way. And it made me want to do more than just participate. I was actively, creatively writing about some of these gods. Odin had tapped me at this point in my dream world because I've been writing about them. So I really felt drawn to offer a bloat myself, especially to the deities I was beginning to feel close to through my writing, which were at that time Frigg and Odin. And Freya, but mostly Odin and Freya. Frigg was just coming into it.
What led you to goddess Frigg, or did she meet you? I want to kind of steer the conversation towards goddess Frigg.
Sure. For me, I think finding Frigg wasn't a single moment. It felt more like recognition. I think part of me was looking for her because I was a wife. I'm a mother of 9. I had lost my mother early in my life, so that divine feminine was very important to me. I lost my mom when I was 14 to cancer. So I feel like she met me halfway, or maybe she'd always been there. I just didn't know it. I often had a sense that wasn't our first connection, and I do believe in reincarnation, and I believe that something in me already knew her.
And so were you led to goddess Frigg through your heathen rituals, or dreams, or I'm just curious.
No, those are very good questions. I think I realized that she, more than Freya, more than Odin, more than any of them, Frigg was the one who resonated with me. So my first, being a heathen, we're called a religion with homework. You've probably heard that before. So I went to the lore and I started really reading everything I could. And there isn't tons, but there is enough. And then you start calling her by her praise names, and being part of the assembly, the sacred wheel. Of course, we do something which is a kind of drawing down called aspecting. So I started using her symbols, the heron, the spinning wheel, the drop spindle, and really connecting with her and feeling so at home, just really at home with her. And over time, that idea of her kindness and that calm, still center she has, that no nonsense aspect, it all just clicked. There was just it clicked. It felt like slipping into something that had always fit for me.
Oh, beautiful. So who is Frigg? For our listeners who don't know anything about Frigg, or maybe I'm mispronouncing, is it Frigg or Frigg?
You can just call her Frigg. Frigg's fine.
And why is Frigg so important in Norse mythology? I know she's the All Mother and she's married to Odin, but other than that, I don't know a lot about Frigg. Can you?
Yeah, let's talk about Frigg.
Attributes?
So I will talk about her attributes for sure. So for me, let me just start with who she is for me.
Okay.
She is a nurturing and wise presence at the heart of everything. And that is in the lore as well. If you go to the lore and you look at like the Skald, that's kind of poet warrior, Egil Skallagrimsson, he calls the Aesir and Osinor, the gods and goddesses of Asgard, Frigg's descendants. And that is not in a literal sense, because she is not the biological mother of them, but mothering, that sense, that genderless word that has to do with caring and being and weaving a dynamic, respectful harmony. That is all part of who she is. And she is the all mother. And building connections and uniting communities and relationships over time. That is where she is the mother of the all
Right.
mother. And
Poetic Edda?
there's two Eddas. The poetic is the older one, and
Mhm.
then there's Snorri Sturluson's medieval one, which is called the Prose Edda or Snorra Edda.
That's where we can learn a little bit more about her.
Yeah, that's one of the places. And of course, you can go to the sagas, the Norse sagas. You can go to Historia Langobardorum. There's many other sources out there. You can go to
Okay.
for further study. But yeah, you can start with them. And I always suggest, I'm going to just throw this out there for your readers, that if you get um, Ben Wagner's incredible Our Troth, Volume 2, which is going to be about the heathen gods. That is a great resource for just general learning about them. And so I'm going to put a shout out there to Ben Wagner
Yeah.
right now. That can be
Okay.
gotten anywhere, I guess, books are sold.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
that's a good one.
so moving on to your book, tell us about your new book, Frigg's Twelvefold Flame, Creating Justice and Healing with the Goddess in Her Court. And what inspired you to write it? And how does the reader work with your book?
Oh, those are really good questions. So, well, obviously, the times we're living in inspired me to write this book, and
Yeah.
the urging of the entities, the goddesses who I work with, which would be Frigg and the 12 allied goddesses. When we look around
Hmm.
here in the US and around the world, we see unprecedented violence and authoritarianism. We see rights being stripped away. We just in this country, the Voting Act was just stripped. Choice has been stripped. Communities are targeted. Histories are being erased. And it's just someone on an inclusive heathen path as people, as communities who are neo-pagan and green embracing. That's not separate from our spirituality. It is the work. We are to do the great work, and this is part of it, right? So
Okay.
working with Frigg really shaped how I understand that. She's not passive. She's about care and responsibility and foresight and justice, right? So this book became for me like a call to activism and action, but also a toolkit. Like, just how do people connect without feeling overwhelmed or burnt out? How do I connect with, we'll just call it the sacred feminine, the divine erotic in the sense of Audre Lorde, that huge creativity, intuitive, joyous, embracing. Um, how do we do that while actively engaging in healing and justice in our real lives and in our community? So I made this book really hands-on.
Yeah.
Um, what's really important to me is that the book is intentionally flexible. You are welcome to move through it step by step. That is one way to do it. That's great. But it's designed to be intuitive and situational. So you might feel called to, let's say, oh, I need boundaries in my life. I need to go work with scene. And I need to learn the sacred power of no, right? Or you say, I need healing, so I'm going to go to air. And that's fine. So the idea is to just meet the moment you're in rather than forcing someone into a rigid structure. And in the end, really what I hope is everyone leaves sort of reassured that they don't have to face everything alone.
Yeah.
That justice isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, doing the best you can in your own way. And the goddesses who I talk about in the book and celebrate are here to meet us exactly where we are.
Yes, for support, right? And they're
Yes,
offering their wisdom.
exactly.
What is the Twelvefold Flame? Is it the Council of 12 Goddesses?
It is. When I was writing the book, because there's lots of ways to look at these goddesses. Some are like, oh, they're hypostasis. They're just emanations from Frigg. That's not a just, because, of course, in Christian theology, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are also hypostasis, right? They're emanations, but they're fully formed. They're fully functional. So you can look at it that way, or you can see them as goddesses who are all on their own, who are part of her team. The 12-fold flame for me is a metaphor for the 12 allied goddesses and how Frigg works with them. So
Mm.
for me, I see it as the 12 allied goddesses who stand with her, and they each carry and amplify a different aspect of her power and presence. And each of those things is going to have to do with Frith, Frith. It's that dynamic harmony. We don't have a word in English that quite fits it, but we can learn a lot about someone by who they surround themselves with, right? And
Mm.
that absolutely applies here.
Hmm.
Because in the lore, Frigg is connected to this group of goddesses whose function is almost like a sovereign council. And I use the word allied goddesses, sovereign council. Um, I think that's fine. They're distinct beings for me, goddesses in their own right, but I also respect that some people understand them, as I said, as emanations of Frigg. Doesn't matter. Either way, they're deeply connected to her and to each other.
She's like the CEO and they're the board of directors.
Yeah, Frigg
Kind
is a
of.
kind of CEO for sure. And these 12 goddesses as her board of directors, not, I don't like to think of it in a corporate sterile sense,
Yeah, but
but in the
just for our
sense of
listeners to get an idea.
right. Yeah, that's a perfectly. And in fact, there are people who have seen her in corporate clothing as a CEO, and that's fine. I see it sort of like a sense of shared leadership and collaborative
Yeah.
sovereignty, but definitely, I think CEO is a perfect word. Board of directors, I use it all the time. So each one has authority, just like in a board of directors, and the domain, and together they create something much stronger, right? And more dynamic than any single figure could. So for me, it's not just symbolic, it's practical. It
Yes.
gives you all sorts of points of connection. There's all these doorways in, depending on where you are and what you need. And that's how the book's structured.
Yeah, I love going towards the end of the book. There's meditations, there's rituals, affirmations, activities. There's lots and lots of great information and practical hands-on spiritual work that you can work with in your book. So I love that.
That
Um,
was very important to me to put that
yeah.
all that in.
Yeah, because we want to know how we can work with Frigg and her council of 12 to create change in the here and now. So often with goddesses and talking with goddesses and kind of reviewing books on goddesses, it gives a sense, okay, they were great once in ancient days, but I want to know how can we apply their wisdom in the here and now. And so with Frigg, I'm curious how she can aid us the most with social activism. We're living in very scary, fearful, authoritarianism, fascist times here in the US. And I'd love to kind of hear your viewpoint on how we can harness or kind of connect with Frigg for practical, hands-on social change.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When I think about how Frigg supports social activism today, I come back to this idea that she teaches us to lead with both care and strategy. She's an incredible strategist and tactician in the lore and in every way that I've ever worked with her. She has the long game in mind and she isn't reactive. She's a seeress and a planner, and she encourages us to really look at what's happening beneath the surface and then ask, what are the root causes of this injustice?
Mm,
That's where I
yeah.
think for me as an intersectional feminist, the intersectional thinking begins. It's like, um, this is really important. Oppression isn't one dimensional. It's not one size fits all. And Frigg's wisdom helps us navigate that complexity with intention instead of overwhelm. Again, that idea that the strategist, that still center that she has about her. And at the same time, though, I like her because she reframes activism as sacred care work. Sacred
Mhm.
care. As all mothers, she shows us that mothering is a verb, it's genderless. It's how we protect and we nurture and we show up for each other, right? And
Yeah.
that can look for us today like mutual aid or community support or advocacy or just like holding space for someone who's struggling.
Hmm.
That work matters just as much as policy
Yes, it
change.
does. Yes, it does. And I love what you say about going to the root cause of the issue and understanding that and working with Frigg to get to the root cause, because so often we can't really do the change that we want to do unless we know exactly what is the core issue, what is the root cause, and how can we work on that?
Right. Otherwise it's just rearranging
It,
deck chairs on the Titanic,
yeah,
isn't it,
yeah.
Bridget?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good analogy. Do you have a favorite ritual or bloat to call on Frigg for justice, resilience, or manifestation? And I know you're going to give a little incantation or meditation at the end. We just have a couple minutes at the end, but is there some bloat that like,
Yeah.
or something from your book that you
Oh, yeah.
particularly love?
Yeah, I had fun working through and writing and experiencing all of them. But one of the ones I think I really love that I wanted to discuss is I really like the right for collective weird and liberation, because it's a practical tool for justice and community building that helps us set intentions for equity, and it strengthens connections and shared goals. That is in the Frigg section of the book. And it offers an opportunity to reflect on how your justice work efforts affect the web of weird. And I think that's really important.
When
What
we
we
say
say, what we
weird, we're
do.
not saying WIERD, folks.
No, thanks. No, we're talking WYRD, weird, which is the causality, how our choices affect the world around us, and how the world around us and the situations we're in affect us.
Yes.
And what we do and what we don't do, what we say and what we don't say, all is part of that. So I have a right in there that works on that, asking us, to help us with
Okay.
that. If you look for right for collective weird and liberation, that is the name of it. And it
Okay.
is in the Frigg section. It might be in the Queen section. I'm not sure,
Okay.
because I go through her different aspects of Frigg and address those. So that might be there.
Sure. Okay. What is the troth? The troth or the troth?
Troth. It's
And
called both.
what do they do?
Good question. Okay, so first of all, I say troth, but troth is just as fine. I have people, the more American way of saying it, I think, is troth, though a lot of Americans say troth like oath. So either way, either is correct. I don't have a problem. Again, that doesn't matter. You can call it troth or troth, but it's an inclusive heathen organization, and it's got members worldwide. And for many people, it's a home base. And we offer education through the lore program and the clergy program and a great magazine called Idana. And we have prison inreach, and we do a lot of educational work. We are showing up all over the place at PPDs and conventions. We offer all sorts of services, meetings, prayer
Oh,
services,
great.
goddess salons. We have troth moot. I love that. I remember when I first heard, I'm like, ent moot, troth moot. It just means meeting, right? So we have troth moot, virtual and
Okay.
in person, and Wintermoot, another one, and all sorts of social media spaces on Discord and
That's great.
Facebook and Insta and all that
Can
stuff.
anyone
So
join, or do you have to be heathen or
no, not
okay.
at all. We are inclusive. That means LGBTQ plus, all
Everybody.
embracing.
Right.
Everyone can come in, and I want to talk a little bit about that because this is important. Um, we're passionate about inclusivity. That's
Yeah.
so important. We truly believe in creating an inclusive space where everyone with goodwill can feel at home. So what really important is Declaration 127 for us, which says, if you when you see evil, call it out, basically, and give your enemies no peace about it. And that's important because there's been a real need to say that out loud and
Yeah.
not leave any gray area. And that's
Yeah.
something that the Troth has embraced.
We need more and more of these type of communities and gatherings for everybody. So before we run out of time, what is your website and social media so that our listeners can find more about you and your books and your offerings?
Oh, yeah. Well, there's Rev Maura Durkan, author. You can find that, Rev Maura Durkan, author, .com. That's
Okay.
easy enough.
Okay.
You'll find Rev Maura on Facebook, and also at Rev Maura on Insta.
Okay.
All of the above.
Okay.
All of the above are
Wonderful.
are good places to go look for me. And of course,
Yeah.
you can always go to the Troth's website and look me up there and get a
Yeah.
hold of me at clergy at the Troth. And I will be
Perfect.
happy to talk to you.
And do you have any upcoming plans for the future, such as workshops, new books, events?
I will race through them. So it's on my website. If you go there to Rev Maura Durkan, author, I'm offering a virtual bloat to tear var Forseti and Scene on I believe it's May 20th. It's virtual, and you can find the link on my website. I'll also be giving a talk on Frigg and sacred activism at Llewellyn on June, I believe it's the 8th. And then I have another book I'm working on called The Daughters of Shadow, and that's going to explore the shadow side of femininity in Norse mythology. So that's
Ooh,
all exciting.
yeah,
All things happening, and yeah, that's
wonderful.
enough for now to be getting on
Yeah,
with.
and it's excellent. Yeah, I'm excited about your new book. I'm excited about this book and learning more about Frigg and her 12-fold flame and council. This has been really excellent.
Thank
And
you.
so enjoyed talking with you about all your offerings and your wonderful book. So I'm going to allow you just a few minutes here at the very end to give us, Maura's going to give us a short 1 or 2 minute prayer or incantation to Goddess Frigg for justice.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is very short. So let's just take a
Sure.
second if you haven't already, just to ground yourself, take a breath and breathe out. Release your shoulders, your jaw, let the tension go out of your body. Let's try to take a moment in virtual space to connect ourselves and just be present here for a moment as we open ourselves up to this beautiful goddess as Lady of the Keys for justice work. Hail Frigg, key keeper, peace weaver. Open the doors for activists, lawmakers, and organizations to work together with compassion and kindness, fostering positive change. Grant me the words and actions to support the marginalized. Help us unite in efforts to build a better world. With your keys and our dedication, may we create a world where Earth and all beings are valued and respected. So may it be. Hail Frigg.
Hail Frigg. Thank you. That was
Thank you.
beautiful. And it's a call to action too. I love that.
Well, that's what she wants.
Yeah, and that's what we need at this time in our society and culture. So, again, thank you so much. Thank you for all you do in service to the divine feminine, Maura. And I'm so grateful that you came on the show, and it was delightful chatting with you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Bridget.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thanks to all our listeners for joining us here today.
Thank you.
All right. Well, until next time, blessed be. Bye bye.